We are absolutely delighted to welcome today our supporters, UKC3 and the Cybersecurity Council, with whom we're in partnership for this recording. And we would what the format of this webinar is that we will have a panel discussion with a number of key leaders from the sector, including David Battersby from the UK Cybersecurity Council, Dr. Andrea Cullen, co-founder of Caps Lock, Lara Sunday, who is a senior product manager at Rapid7, and Paul McKeown, who is a cybersecurity consultant working with Vertical Structure here in Belfast. What I would ask everyone to do is please keep your cameras off and also your mics off for the duration of the panel discussion, and we'll have Q&A at the end. What we would ask you to do, please, is to submit any questions that you might have till the end of the panel discussion, and please submit them through the chat where myself and my colleague Gillian will moderate them. Really, to give you an overview of today's webinar, is the Cybersecurity Council has launched a new initiative called the Cyber Access Network. And this is something that is really designed to support people that are coming into the industry, but also that people that are navigating their way, moving from different careers as well. What I would, sorry, it's going to go, if we could go back to the original slide. Sorry, Gillian, thank you. So what I would do is I'm asking the panel to introduce themselves. Perhaps if I could ask David Battersby from the Cybersecurity Council to go first. And thank you so much, panel, for giving up your time today to support the attendees on the webinar. And I'll take it over to you, David.
Thank you, Jo, and thank you everyone else for being here, and the rest of the panel, of course, for joining us. Hi, I'm David. I'm the Senior Programme Officer at the UK Cybersecurity Council. Part of that role is that I lead on the Cyber Access Network, which, as Jo noted, is our newest early careers initiative. The goal of that is to support people on the way into cyber through facilitating networking, sharing information, and sort of introducing people to the range of voluntary and other programs that exist within cybersecurity. It's a super enthusiastic, generous profession. I'm sure all the panelists will agree, with a lot of fantastic things to be involved in, and eager professionals who are amazing at sharing knowledge. And we want to make sure people considering cybersecurity or on their way in sort of are tapped into that. We do that through a mailing list that goes out almost every week, highlighting sort of events, learning opportunities, funding opportunities, that kind of thing in cybersecurity. We run webinars on different roles that exist in cybersecurity to help you navigate your way through. And fingers crossed, we'll also be doing even more in-person networking events in the future. We've had ones this month with Cyber East, Cyber North, and Cyber London. And I believe there's one coming up with NI Cyber as well towards the middle of April. So yeah, it's the way to sort of meet other members of your community and be tapped into that place from nice and early on in your journey.
Thank you so much for that, David. And what I would say, everyone, is that at the end of the session, we'll have some QR codes for you to go on to the Cybersecurity Council, have a look at the Cyber Access Network, and please do engage with it. It's a brilliant resource for anybody, and we would thoroughly encourage you to get involved. If I could move over to Lara next, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hello, hi everybody. It's really nice to be here. So I actually changed careers 5 years ago. So this is a topic very dear to my heart. I was previously a cloud security architect at Microsoft, and I'm now a senior product manager at Rapid7 about the past year and a half. That's me.
That's great, thank you. And Andrea.
Hi, good afternoon. Great to meet you all. I've been in cyber some 20+ years now, since before it was called cyber. But like most people, it was not a straightforward path into it. I had a number of different roles before then, but more recently, one of the founders of Caps Lock, when we look at reskilling people into cyber roles. So super excited to be here and to have the opportunity to share a bit of knowledge and answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Andrea. And last but not least, Paul.
I am glad to be here. Thanks for the invite. I have come from the public sector, so I was a firefighter for 21 years and then reskilled myself through the Great Caps Lock, and I'm now in cyber about 3 years. So hopefully I'll be able to answer your questions or any thoughts you have on how to do that. Thank you.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, panelists. I think we'll just get straight to it. A lot of people would probably think of cyber as quite a broad range, isn't it, really, of roles. And I think with what we would really like everyone to get from the webinar today is a sense of the different pathways that you can take. It's not one size fit all. The different options that you can have, different pathways that you can take, but also just to understand that cyber is such a catch-all term that you can have so many different career paths that you can take, but also that there are technical roles but non-technical roles. Cybersecurity is increasingly important for the UK critical national infrastructure. So we need more people coming into cybersecurity and investing their careers in helping to keep our country safe, but also to secure so many different parts of our lives. So it could be from telecoms, it can be health, it can be in various different areas. So when we think about cybersecurity, we're really thinking about people supporting our neighbours, our friends and family to keep them safe. And with that in mind, I have a question for the whole of the panel, is that why do you think in 2025 that it's so important that we have a strong and diverse cybersecurity sector? And please feel free to chip in, whoever would like to go first on that one.
I'll jump in straight away on that one. A topic certainly close to my heart. Diversity is hugely important in a lot of sectors, but I think specifically cyber, because it is all about problem solving. It's all about different points of view. It's all about different perspectives and understanding that you're creating solutions that are fit for purpose for the whole of the economy. So that really needs a diverse set of people to be able to do that. So I guess for us, we see that diversity every day. So we see people like Paul, firefighters, police officers, taxi drivers, chefs of all ages, all backgrounds. And what you get when you get that mixture of people together is a solution really that does think of every potential part of society. And I think for me, that is at the heart really of getting diversity into the sector, is to make sure you've got those diverse points of views and experience, different education levels, different backgrounds, different ages, and together actually the sum of those parts is incredibly powerful.
Paul, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'd just like to pick up on that. So coming from a firefighter background, a lot of ours obviously dealing with major incidents, but just as Andrea said there, you could be a chef, you could be it's working within that team and everybody has those individual skill levels. My skill level, which I've found out in the past couple of years, is with communication. So I would deal a lot with customers and clients, and that's where I sort of specialize in, whereas people are very technical and they can solve those problems. So working together and knowing your strengths is very, very important, I think.
And just on that, really, why do you think that it's an attractive industry to get into, really? And I'd open that to anyone on the panel.
So if this sounds really blunt to me, but it can be a very well-paid career. Coming from working in public, I was a support worker, so yeah, it can be that if money is your thing that you care about, it can be a lucrative career path. But I also just think it's incredibly rewarding. I mean, I get to work with people from all over the world. I've had some amazing opportunities and amazing, experiences. I meet people that, when you're not the smartest person in the room all the time, but it's amazing being there and getting to learn and meet all these people. So I think sort of incentives of why, if you're someone who loves learning and meeting people and getting new experiences, I think it's amazing for that.
Yeah.
Another element of, go ahead, Andrea. I think another element of that is that one of the benefits of it being a relatively new industry without clearly defined career paths is that you can have a super varied career where you try new things very regularly, different specialty areas, going in and out of cyber into sort of other areas of tech or non-tech as well. It has that benefit of not being something like law or medicine where there is a really defined career pathway and you're in it for life. You can move in and through and out again and continue to challenge yourself pretty much for the entire career.
Yeah, I think that variety is massive. I couldn't agree more in terms of opportunities. I also think there's a ton of job satisfaction, like Lara said, but also not only is it well paid, but I think there's lots of opportunity for progression. And that might not be a linear progression path. You might, like you say, weave about a little bit. So there might be elements of your job that you really enjoy. And you can pretty much guarantee, if there is an element of it, that there'll be a specialism in that. So you can move sideways, upwards, and round and about. And I think for me, generally, that job satisfaction, that opportunity for variety, keeps you engaged and enjoying it. And it's a great sector. I think tons of incredible people in it.
Do you think there are any misconceptions that we need to address, really?
Yeah, I could sort of go with that. First of all, it's probably a lot of people think it's young people. It's filled full of young people, and it is in a way, but you still need those age ranges and those experiences, whether it be in life experience or from other jobs. We have just Vertical Structure, who I was with, has just been bought over by Instill. So we have gone from like 18 staff to 150, and it's been brilliant, that sort of integration with new people, new ideas, engineers coming together with cybersecurity, which is really interesting. So probably people's concept is slightly different, that there's no space for the older clientele, and I would totally disagree with that.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, David.
I think related to that, I think there's also a misconception that it's all that high octane rapid response. Someone's trying to break in and you need to stop them. There are many, probably the majority of cybersecurity roles that are preparatory, defensive, get your policies in place, make sure people know what to do, which can fit around lifestyles that aren't sort of early 20s, no responsibility, you can work 20-hour days. And we need to make sure we're valuing that part of the profession as well as the sort of more cool looking hacking, code on the screen, they're in thriller movies section.
No, I was actually going to say that I actually would say to the industry, sometimes I get annoyed. Like, so I'm a social science, my degree was in anthropology. And there is this conception that you have to have a technical degree to get into cybersecurity. And I think, yes, you will have to technically train, right? There's no getting away from that. But that your starting point can't be from, not having a computer degree or any qualification is a fallacy. I know people with psychiatry degrees and music degree. There's a lot of musicians actually that go into cyber. But yeah, so that's another misconception. And I think it's even on the industry when it comes to recruiting people, they need to be a bit more open when they're actually writing job descriptions, because they need to not just say, oh, you have to have a computing background. I think people have to be a bit more open. So anybody listening from the recruitment side, be a bit more open on that side as well, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree with all those. To be honest, the average age of people we see reskilling is 35, and it's anybody 50 upwards and 18, and everybody in between. So age, absolutely, place for everybody, because it brings that experience. And I go one step further and say that, you don't have to have a technical background or a technical degree. You don't actually have to have a degree at all. I think it's having the right mindset, having that willingness to learn and change and develop, and to look at things a bit more around background, but for me, that opportunity to look at potential. And again, kind of saying in terms of recruiters and recruitment as a cycle, actually looking at things that maybe are skills based rather than anything else, and saying, actually, can you or could you do this, rather than do you have this particular background, this particular degree, this particular whatever, fill in the blank. So it goes back really to that diversity piece.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say just on that is that, what do you think are the key aptitudes that anyone needs to have to be in any kind of cyber role?
I'd say top of the tree, willingness to learn. But also when you look, the World Economic Forum kind of published top in-demand skills, and this is across all sectors, but more so than cyber. And it is things around problem solving, critical thinkers, analytical thinkers, being able to deal with incomplete information, being able to manage and be flexible. But at the heart of it, I guess it is that openness, willingness, desire and passion. You see, I've worked in education a long time, and in my opinion, those are the things that determine success way more than if you did a degree 10, 15 years ago.
And I suppose really just moving on to Laura and Paul, could you give us an overview of the pathway that you've taken, some of the background? Paul, you've mentioned that you were a firefighter, and Laura, you've worked in music and been a support worker as well. Perhaps if you could just give give it a day in the life of the work that you're doing at the moment, but also an idea of the path that you've taken into cyber.
Yeah, sure. Well, for me, it was sort of, like I say, coming from the public sector, but an injury sort of made my final decision. I had to retire due to a back injury. So I knew that was coming, and I sort of thought, what's next? I have 3 sons now in the IT business. So my eldest son had his master's finished, and he was actually in the IT business. So that did fascinate me, that side of things. Plus, it's not difficult work, really, you know, compared to firefighting and nursing and all these other, you're on your feet all day. I sort of thought that you had to have certs, so maybe I could sort of give you a bit of a background what I'd done and then what to leave out. I did go and do certs, so I'd done like CompTIA certs, and spent quite a bit of money because I had absolutely no experience in cyber or the IT. So I thought I'm sort of from old school, you sort of A-levels, degrees, masters, you need all this to get a job. And then lockdown came, and there was a cyber school was on, and a chap called Jonathan ran this cyber school. So I done this with my youngest daughter, and lo and behold, about a month or so later, Caps Lock developed. So Jonathan was one of the founders in Caps Lock as well, and I just followed their path, and I really understood like this could possibly be for me. Unfortunately, I couldn't get into the first cohort, but I managed to get into the second one, and everything just aligned. Do you know, it was one of those things, everything aligned for me. From that, they were very, very good because you're exposed to everything again. So one of the mentors, and that's the thing about Caps Lock, I'm not here to plug Caps Lock, but I have to because I've gone through it. But one of the mentors put up, there was the cyber helpline was looking for somebody. So I just threw myself in straight away and replied to her email. And it was probably the best thing I ever done, because being in the fire service, you do get promotion, but it's all internal. So I never done a CV for 20 years. I've never been to interviews for about 15, 20 years. So I had to get through that whole process to get into the cyber helpline, and that helped me massively. And if I just sort of go back on that a wee bit, one of the biggest things as well was my LinkedIn profile. So making those connections with people. And again, we were shown how to do that from a very early stage within Caps Lock. You know, you sort of have to promote yourself. And I have seen since that, it's basically your online CV now. So you don't use it in a way to tap people up or say, I'm looking a job, but you comment on their comments you like, you know, you share different aspects of it. And just going on from that as well, it actually helped me. So I do research and authentication for Bellingcat. So I do that on a voluntary basis as well. And it really helped me to get into that organization, which is massive. And it's what I sort of have a bit of a passion for. So personally, I would advise you don't have to do loads of certificates, but they do help if you've never been before. But I would also advise to sort of look for like volunteering roles, because it's a perfect opportunity to get in with, you know, into that industry. And I hope that has explained it all right. Thank you.
No, it did, absolutely, Paul. And what I would add to that is that what I see is that when we get within NI Cyber, we get a lot of people looking for placements or opportunities to be placed with companies. And what always stands out is when people have taken an active interest, either with volunteering or get involved with hackathons or capture the flags. So it's that when potential employers can see that, you know, that people have got a genuine passion and understanding of the industry as well before they even start. And I think that is something, along with the LinkedIn CV, as you said now, is really valuable to people. Lara, it would be great to get an idea of your career path and what you're doing at the moment.
Yeah, so for 20 years, I was working in organic farming and support work in the music industry. So very, very, very different. I decided to go back. I'd never done a degree first time around. I graduated 2018. And I went back to support work because funny enough, well, Microsoft were not coming to the social sciences fair at Queen's at that point. I think Google actually hire anthropologists, but for UXers. But and so yeah, but I have one of my good friends is actually a principal security architect for a very large global firm. And you know, you go to university and I learned all these things, and I just, you know, when you don't feel, as much as I loved the support work and the farming, I just wanted to do a bit more. I felt like I could do more. And yeah, so he was like, no, keep an eye out for like a course, or like if there's transition courses or something that can, you know, help you. And so I kept an eye out, and Microsoft ran their first cybersecurity academy, which was, it was the Department of Economics kind of were supporting it and things. And it was, what was it, 12 weeks, 5 exams, most stressful thing I've ever done in my life, and I've been divorced. But you weren't guaranteed a job. You were guaranteed an interview at the end of it. And there was 25 of us got in, and they hired 22 of us. So it was very much worth it. So thinking about certs, we had, as part of that, we had to take exams. So like right from nothing to AZ 500 for any, which is security engineering, it was very intense. But on the note of like things that you can do, kind of qualifications, I actually think ICS Squared do a great cybersecurity like entry level certification, and it's free. I think it's free. It was free. I think for anybody, you know, it gives you like a nice basis, like quite a broad introduction, is quite good for anybody, that you could take that and kind of start, you know, on your own time, learn if you're trying to sort of, before you go for something, or you just want to kind of find out about different areas and have a base knowledge, I think it gives you. And it's quite a good one. But yeah, so then I was at Microsoft, went from an associate consultant, and ended up being a cloud solution architect for security. And then Cahill O'Neill, who's the director at Rapid7, heard me talking about cloud security posture management. And he's a very convincing man. And yeah, convinced me to be a product manager. And so I've been here. This is my second year at Rapid7. And yeah, my day is very different. So it's slightly different being a security architect to being a product manager. However, navigating people, and I very, very much draw on my people skills over the years to kind of help me be successful in my role. And I'm very interested in people and getting different breaking down, like I did think it was a bit of a cliche that there's silos in security, but unfortunately that is not a cliche and it is a thing. So I definitely think if you're someone who is willing to communicate with people and bring people together, that is invaluable at where we are at this point, both from a sort of technological sort of perspective. The technologies that we use now force us to actually work together in a way that they never did traditionally. So that's why those skills are so important, I think, now. But yeah, it's been a whirlwind 5 years.
It sounds like it, and both of you are so inspiring in terms of the different paths that you've come from. And I think it just does underpin as well what Andrea was saying around it's the willingness to learn something new, the thirst for knowledge, but also an understanding of the importance of cybersecurity as a whole. And what I would then go on to David and Andrea, we've got such a vast array of different accreditations that people can take, and it can be quite confusing. So it would be great if the two of you could maybe have a think and let the audience know what are the key things that we need to be looking out for. How can we sort of how can people either start in the industry, or how can they pivot from a more traditional software role? Which is a big question in itself, but I know you can both answer it.
There's a couple of resources on our website that I'd always recommend people take a look at when they're considering that journey into cyber. The most interesting one is our Cyber Careers Framework. I'll put the link in this chat because it could be a little bit tricky to find in our quite large menu on our website. But that's where we've broken down cybersecurity into about 15 different specialist areas. Of course, within those, there are subdisciplines, and there are many people who practice more than one area. But within each profile, there's an idea of the technical and non-technical skills that will be helpful in entering that area of cybersecurity. And what I always encourage career changers especially to do, especially those coming from other areas of tech, is to just understand what your relevant skills are before you go and do your learning. People are often surprised by how many of the things they know are relevant to cybersecurity careers, and how many of their sort of soft skills, human skills, business skills, whatever we call those, are going to be helpful. So taking a look through those, especially the names that call out to you, and sort of mapping your own experience, your own skills onto those, can help you understand the gaps you have and where you might want to do that training, as well as how you can leverage your existing skills into another cyber role. Andrea's, I think, co-founder, Lorna, was speaking at one of our events the other day and highlighted that about 30% of graduates from capstone programs don't go into junior roles. They go into sort of mid-senior roles in cybersecurity careers. And I think part of that is because there are so many transferable skills, it's going to help you to know what yours are when you're sort of selling yourself into that career and not underselling your existing experience.
Andrea, any thoughts?
I have, yeah. And kind of building on from that, it is a great resource that David highlights. We use it quite a bit in terms of helping people decide where they want to be, and like you say, understanding the skills. For me, the first good starting point is to understand the difference between skills and knowledge. And sometimes certs can be great for knowledge and background. And then you can kind of think, okay, well, how do I get the skills? They often have to be more applied and practical. So it's how do you get that practical experience? Now, I know formal training programs are not for everyone. There's a wealth of ways to do it. And some of that is understanding yourself. So do you like a structure and a framework where things are laid out? Or do you like to be a bit more organic and kind of self-discover? How disciplined are you in terms of that learning? So I think it's understanding how you are going to learn the best. As well as understanding what skills, like you say, that you already have. Because, for example, if I give you a good example, we had somebody who was he worked in parks and forestry, and he had to fell trees, and part of that process was understanding risk. And when he went for his first role, actually became a risk analyst, and part of that was being able to transfer what he understood about risk into his current role. So you're never starting from zero. If you've had kind of things you've done in the past, which bit of that can equally transfer? So I think it's that difference of understanding knowledge and skills, whether you like a framework and a structure, or whether you're going to organically look at learning. And I think the kind of the final bit really is around exposure. and how you get that exposure, whether it is to a network of people, whether it is to a network of employers, whether it is to mentors or coaching, and how that might be look and structured. So how do you kind of become part of that environment? And there are various ways to do that as well. For me, it's finding what works for you, understanding where you want to be, but also understanding where you currently are. And I guess, you know, part of the question is, how could the Cyber Council and Caps Lock help in that journey? Sometimes it is that display of the breadth of opportunity, and which particular part of that is allied to where you want to be and where you want to go. As you rightly said, 30% go into mid and senior level, and that's a lot to do with what they've done in the past. So, you know, you're bringing your whole self into the sector, not just the bit you're learning from today.
Absolutely. And then I'd be keen to get everyone's thoughts really on the degree path versus the apprenticeship path, as also versus the self-taught, you know, really advocate path as well. I know in Northern Ireland we have some fantastic universities, and I would include the Open University, and that they are absolutely brilliant in some of the degree courses that are available. We've obviously got Queen's University Belfast, and we've got Ulster University as well. But I know that we have an audience here from across the whole of the UK. So it'd be great to get everyone's thoughts on, if you have, let's say, for example, a software computer science degree, and how do you translate that into a cyber career potentially, if you're coming back into it, vis-a-vis going into the industry straight off the bat with potentially an apprenticeship. Happy to get everyone's thoughts on that.
I saw three mutes at once. You go first.
Sorry. Well, I can go ahead. I give you my background. I done A-levels and that was it. So I never went to university. And what Andre was saying about structured, it sort of worked for me very well, because I knew I was coming to the end of my career with the fire service. So I was doing self-learning part-time, and I was doing it for free, as Laura was saying, and I also then thought I needed qualifications. But Caps Lock helped me because it was structured. It was a full-on course every day, and then it gave me that exposure to what does cybersecurity, or what does this world look like. So I was nearly like an apprentice within this course, which was brilliant. And it gave me a better idea of how then I can transfer my skills to do that. I must admit, the first 4 weeks I was totally out of my depth, which I thought, because there was people in my team. You were split up into teams, and one of them was a consultant in the job for the last 10 years. So they all had IT backgrounds. But see, once you get your head around that initial process and understand where you're going, it then becomes clear the path you want to take. And just one wee last thing, I thought I was going to go down the road as pen testing until I'd done my first interview, and then I was asked to, the process was so I had to do a technical bit, and I was totally lost. So it sort of hits you straight in the face very quickly. No, this isn't for me. So then I went down the consultant road. So that hopefully answers a couple of questions. Thank you.
Anyone else on that?
Yeah, some of this is what is going to suit you, and what stage you're at, and how it matches with your life and everything that fits with it. So I think it's probably a really complex question, like you rightly said. For me, again, it's going back to the skills and knowledge element, and how you're going to develop the skills you want to develop, or at least understand the different opportunities in terms of a role. I think there's degrees are not necessarily set up to give you the skills to be able to do a job. They just give you a ton of other things. And I worked in universities a lot of years. I can see huge benefits in that. But some of it is understanding the job, I would say for me, part of it is around your current lifestyle. What are the commitments you've got? What are the things you need to do? Are you working a part-time job? Are you doing this part-time? Some of these are life questions, I think, but it generally comes back to this kind of the skills, knowledge and understanding of where you want to be. I don't think there's a top or easy answer, I'll be honest. I think they all give you different things.
Absolutely, and I'd say if we could get an easy answer, that would be brilliant. But it really just isn't like that, is it? Unfortunately, David, do you have anything to add on that?
Completely echoing it's going to depend on your preferences, your life circumstances. To some extent, the level of interest you have in cybersecurity outside of getting a job in it, a degree or a master's degree to convert from another tech field will teach you much more breadth than you probably ever will need in that role. If you have the time and the money and you want to learn more than you will use in your first at least few years of cybersecurity, it can be a really rewarding way to do it. But something like an apprenticeship or a boot camp might be more immediate return. For people who are considering moving from other tech fields, we see people quite often doing a 1-year master's rather than doing a full degree, which can be a little bit quicker and sort of feel a little bit better into your life. I'd also add, because there's one of those individual questions, go to one of your local cluster meetings, find networking, find mentors, and speak to people who've gone down different journeys in longer conversations than you can have here. People love talking about themselves. Very few people who go to a networking session after work are going to object to being asked lots of questions about their journeys into cyber. It's a nice thing to talk about. So that's a good place to get more one-on-one advice than something like a webinar.
No, thank you for that. And I suppose really to round off in a final question for everyone is that, what do you see are the future opportunities that anyone entering the industry should really think about? So AI for cybersecurity, critical national infrastructure. It'd be great to get your thoughts on that as well. And perhaps I could go to Lara on that.
Yeah, I think AI definitely, but don't be. There's some great. There's a organization, the Blue Dot Foundation, that does an AI introduction to AI. It is intimidating. I'm saying that. I think it's the industry as a whole. We're trying to navigate it at the minute. But yeah, I definitely think that is something. If you're interested in it, there's new roles that are being created out of it that didn't even exist 2 years ago that exist now. So there's also options there. But there's brilliant thinking about free if you're just wanting to dabble and kind of see a bit. If you think NVIDIA, Microsoft, AWS, Google, they all have free learning sites and things that are they're good. Do you know what I mean? If you just want to sort of dip your toe in and have a little look and maybe find the basics out about some of this, I think there's great free resources there that won't cost you anything if you just want to kind of do initial exploration. With regards to critical national infrastructure, I find it. I studied international politics and conflict studies before I got into anthropology full time. So I find it fascinating, but also because I want to protect my home and my family and the place that we live and my bank account. Do you know what I mean? It's all, they're all interlinked. And yes, if I'm being completely honest, we live in a world that there's new challenges that we're having to navigate. And I think when it comes to national security, like this is not a new thing. It's just that it's become public more than it has been in the past 20 years, but it's been going on for a very, very long time. Some of the risks and threats that we face, but I think it's now much more in the public eye, and I think it will become more, there will be roles and there will be investment in those areas, I would say. So there will be roles there.
Andrea, any thoughts?
Yeah, for me, almost the kind of the issues stay similar. Fair enough, they do evolve, but I think it's the solutions that become a little bit more smart. So we see the same repeated problems potentially using different technologies. So for example, at one time, if you had a CCTV camera, you might fool it by spraying it with a black paint so it couldn't see you at all. And then you look at how that evolves, and people have got specific outfits that actually fill it. We look at kind of different ways of using technology to basically do the same thing, if I'm honest. So I think the problems do become similar but more sophisticated. For me, the big element, or the big way you can look at future proofing and kind of looking at what the next thing looks like, is keeping a growth mindset and not kind of thinking we're at the end point. Actually, we're at the end point maybe for today, but tomorrow there's going to be something new and something different. As you rightly said, AI has been around a long time. The difference was we got generative AI and everybody started to use ChatGPT. I was the first to say it today, and similar. And then all of a sudden it is more in the public eye and people become much more aware of it. Technology will change. People will, and developed good for good, people will still use it for bad continuously. So I think it is having that growth mindset, open mind, and actually, you know, we're never at the end point, really. We've got to keep going with it. Which
Absolutely.
is exciting.
I know. And congratulations on winning the AI ChatGPT bingo on who was the first to say it. I think that concludes the panel session of the webinar. So we've got some questions that have coming through. So I see this one from Sidra Aslam, which is asking, can we get information about the societies of cybersecurity in the UK? I think in short is that, yes, what we will do after the webinar is that we'll provide some further information to signpost you to these things, Sidra. So I hope that answers the question that you did, and congratulations on doing the higher degree. So we will certainly keep an eye out for that. We'll send some details over to you. Does anybody have any questions? Sorry, any answers from Sidra, for Sidra? Do you know, in terms of where are the best places to source information on cybersecurity? Obviously, with the Cybersecurity Council and CAPSOC being the great ports of call, I would always give a shout out to your local cybersecurity cluster, whichever region you are in the UK, but also likewise from outside of the UK. I'll put a link in the chat to the UK Cybersecurity Collaboration website. But if anyone on the panel has some key points that they'd like to share on that, it'd be great.
I was going to say, it's not maybe a resource, but I find the local cyber community, like actual communities, grassroots. So B-sides, security conferences. If you look up B-sides, anyway, there's we have one here in Belfast, Dublin, in England, Manchester, you know, there's all over the show, Bristol. But we have a local InfoSec NI community, things like that. So there's lots of local communities. If you look up, you know, a meetup and places like that, sometimes if you keep an eye out, there might be things advertised, local meetups. Sometimes they're in a pub. You can go and have a chat with someone informally and find out about stuff there. I was looking through some of the questions there. I think Paul's definitely going to be able to answer the charity one.
Yeah. So this is a question from Jane, who is a member of the NI Cyber community. Jane has been a pharmacist for 22 years and is doing a conversion into software development masters. That she rightly points out that a lot of jobs that are advertised seem to want experience. So for anyone that has possibly been in that scenario, could you give Jane a little bit of advice as to how to handle that? If you're looking for experience but you don't have it at the moment, what ways can you try and mitigate that?
Yeah, sure. So what I did, and somebody mentioned it earlier, I started Hack the Box, or those like challenges to sort of talk that you've experienced these little things. A lot of people write blog posts. So whatever you're interested in, my other sort of interest is open source intelligence. So I would just write blog posts on something you're interested in, or if you've done a challenge, how did you do it? You know, so document it. I've also seen as well in some of the questions, they've asked, we don't have experience. Every job you go for, you seem to have 5 years experience, yet it's like a lower level role. What I would say, and what I've done, and maybe I was a bit cheeky about it, I done a lot of interviews, and I learned from the failures of my interviews what was going wrong, but I applied for jobs that I did not have the qualifications for. Because if you get past that first initial stage and you actually get an interview in front of somebody, you've done the work. And I'll give you a tip there as well. See, the majority of these CVs, they're run through computers and AI. So you literally want to write your CV for the job and the job sort of format. And once you can get past that and show your enthusiasm in interviews, I think that's a key thing as well. And it's similar to Laura, you said that somebody asks about volunteering. It's the ideal, because you don't have to have a set amount of time. You know, you can volunteer a couple of hours a week. That's all I started with the cyber helpline. But it gives you a great opportunity, number one, to talk about it, and also get into the industry and really have a passion for what you feel that you want to do.
Yeah, could I add to that as well? That whole process is the whole interview job process is quite a convoluted, often strange process at times. And going back to that example where I said somebody who'd worked felling trees went for a role in risk, the feedback for him at interview was they had people who'd been working 5 or 6 years in risk in a cyber context, and he had the most experience and the most knowledge around the topic. So don't underestimate what you bring. That would be the first. So even if you're saying I don't have the experience, well, you might actually have the experience, you just might have it in a different context. So I would say don't underestimate yourself. I would also look at mentorship. At times that can be super helpful. For us, we work a lot with employer partners, and we talk to them a lot about skills-based hiring, not kind of specifically asking for a background or a certificate, or it's kind of saying, actually, what is it you need? And most organizations want people who are passionate, determined, interested, hardworking. So once you kind of chip away at that, it's not as daunting as it seems. I'd agree wholehearted with Paul. Apply for things you don't think you've got the qualifications for, because you might be just what they're looking for. The worst thing they can say is no. If you don't apply, you've already got that no. So I would say kind of get yourself out there. But yeah, hopefully there was something tangible in that ramble.
No, absolutely, Andrea. And what I would say is that this is a common thing that comes up with women in particular, is that we tend to look at a job description and we would say, oh no, if we don't quite tick every box, we just need to get over that, to be honest. And as you say, if this is for everyone, is that tell the story of the work that you've done. It might not be within cyber, but if it is within risk or in a different discipline, IT discipline, tell the story of how that applies to the work that they're telling you about. But I would also encourage, as Paul said, is that you apply for things when you know you've got a good handle on it, but don't always think that you've got to tick every single box, which I know is easier said than done sometimes, but I would definitely advocate for that.
I was just seeing Michael's question about, because he has a software engineering degree. I don't know, Michael, if you still work in the industry or not, but one of the things I would recommend, if you're in a company, go and reach out and find who your security team are, or your governance team, if you're into policy and stuff like that. Like, most people are very happy to talk. So, even within your own organizations, you might be somewhere where you actually have, it might be that you don't even have to leave your organization, but maybe you could take a sidestep into another team or something. The other thing is, I don't know what way it works, but I know like at Queen's, they have PhDs and they're crying out for some PhD, which are paid PhD. If you do have a degree, maybe that's an option. I don't know. But yeah, just definitely like sidestepping in and just reaching out to people who might work already. If in public sector, there's amazing teams. When I was at Microsoft, and even now, I work with amazing public sector teams, who sort of would be willing to speak to people and change sideways kind of thing.
Thank you, Laura. And I'm looking at Alex's question there about where do you look for jobs and experience in cyber. LinkedIn is a great resource for it, but depending, Alex, on where you are based, I would say any good tech recruiter would have a really good knowledge of cyber within the region that you're working within. So we would definitely have a chat with your local recruitment consultants that are focusing on technology. But going back to LinkedIn, it is a great resource for finding them as well. But then there's also your local cybersecurity cluster as well. Often, if it's not on their website, you'll find it. You find adverts of jobs within either the meetups that they're having, but also within the LinkedIn profile. So I think all paths lead to LinkedIn, really.
There's also a national non-cluster specific website called Cybersecurity Job Site.
Yes, sorry,
Not that fantastic
got to mention it.
but it's pretty good. There's also, and this isn't so much for people who are coming to cyber fresh, but if you're coming from something like a policing background or military or civil service, Security Cleared Expo happens like 4 times a year, co-located with Cybersecurity Expo, Veteran UK, which is a sort of, if you have that experience of sensitive areas of work, but not necessarily cyber, can be a really good place to meet employers that value that sort of confidentiality, national security kind of experience going into a cyber role.
No, that's brilliant. And I think that's really useful as well. You'll see that my colleague Gillian has helpfully put the Cyber Access Network joining form on the screen there. We would really encourage you to look at that network, because it is a brilliant resource, and please use the QR code to do that. Question that's come in from Daniel here is there much bias in recruitment towards people without a bachelor's or a master's degree in any subject area? I've heard of people being recruited with no experience, but with a very active GitHub. But is that rare? I would say GitHub is a brilliant way of getting your name in the line of sight of people that are recruiting for jobs. Absolutely. And would open it back up to the panel for any questions or any answers on that, or thoughts.
Yeah, I was actually just typing a message, Daniel. No, I would say I have many friends who do not have degrees. I've met incredible apprentices, but even I've met people who've gone off a bit like Paul did and took CompTIA or cloud certifications, but have been able to illustrate that they had a really keen interest, and they knew, like, genuinely could show their interest and their knowledge in the area, to get sort of that first step in the wrong roles, kind of, especially with like security analyst roles and things like that. So no, I don't think there's a bias as such, and I actually think we're moving actually towards more vocational rather than a degree path, is sort of what I'm seeing a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But,
no, thank you for that, Laura. Anyone else on that?
Yeah, completely echoing Lara. There's a lot of preference for vocational and proving you can do things, with the exception of a few fields might still be very heavily pro degree. When you're looking at kind of very in-depth engineering or consultancy tends to quite like a degree, but yeah,
post-quantum cryptography, you might need to pay for that.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
And just a question from, as we go into the last few minutes of the webinar, a question for Ben, who doesn't use LinkedIn. Is there any tips or etiquette for using LinkedIn? What I would say is Google LinkedIn, and you will find lots of tips as a way to use it. It's a really good resource still, I would say, and any tips from the panel would also be appreciated there.
There's a brilliant chap, his name has gone past me, but he's got a YouTube channel, and he shows you exactly how to set up a LinkedIn, down to your face profile, down to keeping everything, clean. The company I'm with now actually reached out to me. I accepted a job by NCC Group, and on that day Simon reached out to me to ask me to come for an interview with Vertical Structure, and I turned him down, and was, to be honest, I was getting more money from NCC Group, and I just followed that path. But see, if I look back on it, where I am now at the moment is a far better company than what I worked for, and sometimes you have to take that little step back as well. So connections within LinkedIn is what I'm getting at. It's amazing the amount of people that come back to you. And there's also, you can tag and search just like Google on the top of LinkedIn, and you can search for jobs and locations as well within the search aspect of LinkedIn.
And just a question here from Karen. Any advice for us out there from a traditional background who have been public sector defenders and security architects for a while, but perhaps looking to move sideways and finding it difficult? I suppose really that one possibly for Andrea and for David for that. Sometimes it's not easy to make the switch, but if there's any ideas as to way Karen could maybe make that move, it'd be very helpful.
Yeah, sometimes it's finding what works for you and what you're able to do. Is it just that you feel you've got all the skills, you've got what you need, you just don't know where the opportunity sits? I think if that's the case, then actually finding a mentor, I genuinely don't mind if you want to ask. I can link you with people. I've got quite a big network myself. I put my LinkedIn on there as well, but I would say start to ask on LinkedIn, start to be active on LinkedIn, build your network, look at a mentor. Also look at role models. For me, that's huge. So there'll be tons of people. You sound like you've got the ideal background to be really, really successful in this sector. And it's sometimes finding those role models, mentors, network of support is a really good road in. But it sounds to me like you've got the perfect background, to be honest, to be able to move into here. Don't know whether that was helpful at all, Karen.
I completely agree, and also add that if you are finding you have that kind of really valuable background and you're still struggling with sideways job applications, make sure you're writing your CV in a way that's clear. I think a lot of people in cybersecurity and adjacent fields assume people will understand what their job title means, assume that a list of tasks will accurately reflect the skills and experience they're bringing. Maybe try and get one of those mentor figures to have a look at it for you. Make sure that you're accurately selling yourself and not just saying something like, supervise X activity. If that's a term that the computer system or the junior HR professional reading it isn't familiar with, that might not impress that first gatekeeper. So make sure you are using those keywords, talking about achievements, talking about skills and experience you have, as opposed to relying on everyone understanding job titles to mean the same thing. As our career framework will highlight, there's not that standardization in what job titles mean or what jobs have what tasks yet. So you might need to be a little bit clearer in that sort of self-selling.
And just a final a question here from Snigdha to say, do we have any free certifications available for cybersecurity? I would say that there's quite a few. I think Lara maybe mentioned that there were quite a few that were available.
I am just
and yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much for that.
As Lara said, that CC one is fantastic to get a taste of different areas, vendor ones also, and also look at your local area and what funding's available. A lot of local areas will have funding available for free level 3 in cybersecurity. Look at local further education or higher education colleges to see if you can get that sort of RQF framework A-level equivalent qualification. It will vary by area. I'm not sure what Northern Ireland has provision-wise.
Yeah,
Oh, that's that.
Sorry, I was just going to add local technical colleges sometimes put on cybersecurity courses like level 3 and level 4. So check those out too.
Yeah, absolutely. Folks, we've come to the end of the webinar now. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. It's a lot over an hour for people. We will be following up with this with an in-person event in Belfast. If anyone is in the local area, this will be on the 1st of May, which is a Thursday, I believe. Venue TBC, but please do come along if you can once we've finalized a venue. And what I would also ask everyone again is that please do go onto the UK Cybersecurity Council website and go on to the Cyber Access Network. Please register for that. This is not it's not a sales pitch. It's just to give everyone the opportunity to look at the brilliant resources that there are available. And what I would just like to say, thank you so much to everybody on the panel for your time today. We are a really, really friendly community, and we would really encourage anyone that wants to get involved in cybersecurity, please do. We absolutely need you. We've got through UKC3, we have a network of brilliant clusters working throughout the UK, and we would just encourage you to come along to any in-person events, but also webinars as well. And thank you so much, everyone, panel, audience, and thank you so much to my colleague Gillian, who has been the technical lead today, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much.
Take care all.
Bye bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.